Hello, everyone. Welcome to Unmuted Love. I'm Ce Eshelman, your host, and I'm here today with Bonnie Harris, who is an expert in working with parents and children, which is lovely to have for us to talk to today. So I'm looking forward to you hearing her sage wisdom. Bonnie's written 2 books, When Your Kids Push Your Buttons and What You Can Do About It, and Confident Parents, Remarkable Kids, 8 Principles for Raising Kids You'll Love to Live With. Well, I know you all want to buy that book, right? Because you really want some kids you love to live with. This also has a workbook to go along with it. And also, Bonnie has a podcast, Tell Me About Your Kids, that allows listeners to be a fly on the wall in a one-on-one parent coaching session with parents of all aged kids dealing with their own real struggles. And I have to say, I have listened to some of these podcasts, and it's very interesting, right? To literally be a fly on the wall in therapy sessions or coaching sessions are really awesome. So thank you for thinking of that. I wouldn't have thought to do that, but I think it's very enlightening for to listen to.
Thank you.
So let's get started by talking about what is your real love, right? Your real focus, which is helping parents understand how they're impacted, right, by their own parenting that they had, and then how that impacts their children. Yeah. Now, why don't you say a little bit about your focus and your passion?
Well, I think that so many parents want to know what to do to get their kids to change their behavior, right? How to get them to listen, how to get them to behave. The focus, when you think that way, when you have that mindset, the focus is completely the opposite of where it should be, because we never want to focus on ourselves. We always want it to be somebody else that we can control or do something with. But my passion is with parents. I mean, children also, of course, but I love parents because they are doing the hardest job there is on the planet. And we're doing it in a way that we're not supposed to be doing it. We're supposed to have a whole lot of people around us, a whole lot of help. And so many parents are doing it all by themselves. They don't even have a partner. And they think they should be doing it all. And it's sad because the pressure we put on ourselves is so great. Some of that pressure that releases itself when our kids push our buttons, when they say that thing or do that thing that makes us crazy, we get triggered. And it's like tapping into an old wound from our past. And when that, we're not conscious of it, but when that gets triggered, we then automatically react in a similar way to how we would have then. And when we understand that, when we know that, then we have some control over that and we can do something about it. Because when we don't know it, it's like our subconscious drives our parenting. Now, this affects all kinds of things in our lives, of course, every relationship. But I am focusing, of course, on parenting and what that reaction, the impact that reaction has on our children, which is not what we ever want.
Right. I so know that feeling. My kids are all grown up now, but one day, this is my least proud moment, my most shameful and least proud moment, was my 12-year-old son said something to me sharp, and I reached out and I slapped him in the face. And I was like, oh my God, I swore I would never, ever do that
of course.
to a child. And then I thought about it. I'm like, and I was 12 when my mom hit me really hard in the face. I don't think I hit him that hard, but wow. I know my mom hit me hard.
Wow.
And the look on her face was, I hate you in that moment. And I felt
that's what you perceived.
Yeah. Right? And I felt that feeling when he said what he said. And then I just did exactly what she did. It was shocking.
Isn't that interesting?
I mean, I was a therapist. I'm a therapist. I've been a therapist for 15 years, no, actually 30 years by then, because he was 12. So it's like, what happened?
It's so crazy.
Yeah. I mean, I think I know, but I know that it happens with parents who are listening for sure.
Absolutely. And if not in the moment of doing it, then immediately after, you just regret it so much. You think, and then it's all this self-deprecation that comes, and what a terrible parent I am, and how could I have done that? And I know that's not going to work. And then we just, of course, make it worse because but hopefully it means backing down and apologizing. But it's got to be more than an apology too.
Yeah, I mean, I was looking at his face the minute it happened, and he was shocked and frightened and incredulous all at the same time. And I just stood there almost frozen. And I started to cry, and I apologized, of course. And, we got through it. But he came with his own set of trauma because he's adopted, and he had already been through a great deal of difficulty in his life before he came to me. And there I was, re-abusing my son. And
however,
it was a shock.
Dealing with it very differently than it had been before, I'm sure.
Oh, for sure. I'm pretty sure my mom never said she was sorry for any of it.
But also the abuse that he had experienced.
Oh, yeah.
He didn't have the repair that you did with him.
Right? No. And, he's all grown up now. And we've since talked a lot about all the things that happened in different ways. And, we've made our repairs, but it was a long time in making. We had to talk about it, not just that incident, but little other things over and over until we kind of worked through them. Yeah, it was a long process actually to repair fully.
Well, what I do with parents who are experiencing this sort of thing is kind of start with a formula just so that there's something to work with. But it's a long process, and it's a very individual process for everybody, of course, because everybody's situation is so different. But what I call the emotional chain reaction is what actually happens in the moment. Your child behaves in a certain way, right, that triggers you, and that behavior could be any number of things. And you then have an emotional reaction, which that's something we understand. And the emotional reaction leads to the physical reaction, what we actually do in the moment. But the piece that we forget about, the piece that we don't even know about, really, is that before the emotional reaction, always, always, always comes a thought, an idea, a judgment, a perception, something that you are bringing in your mind to the situation. Why can't he ever listen to me? Why is he doing that? What is wrong with me that I have got a child at this point who is doing this? What is going on? Why won't he blah, 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 right? And it's those thoughts, those judgments, what I call assumptions. It's not I call them, but that's the language I use. It's the assumptions that we make about our child or about ourselves or about the situation that generate the emotions we feel that then lead to the reactions that we have. So when you understand that, then you've got something to work with, right? Then it's like, why am I thinking that? And sometimes it's really hard to see that it's an assumption. How can you tell me that my child who just hit his sister over the head with a frying pan is not mean and violent? How can you tell me that? It's very hard to see that that's an assumption you're making and not a fact. So we have to really be able to separate facts from perceptions, even though there's a lot of evidence there that is working on us. But when we can see that, then we go into the process of reframing are assumptions. In a situation like that, for instance, he's mean and violent, it's not about changing to some little Pollyanna, oh, he's such a wonderful kid, he's just misunderstood. He is furious with his sister for taking his toy, for doing whatever she's done. He is very upset and he's reacting.
It's seeing him. It's seeing him. Right? All it's seeing him true. Rather than...
Right?
Yeah.
It's seeing him, and it's switching from rage and anger to compassion and understanding. It's taking him in. It's being in the moment rather than in your head with your fears. Your fears are also the assumptions you're making. And then the work, it depends on how deeply all of this is coming up. But sometimes just doing that is enough for a lot of parents. They can kind of do that work, see, oh yeah, I'm thinking that about my child. That's crazy. I don't need to think that. I can reframe that assumption. I can change that. And your emotions immediately change. But sometimes you can't. And when you can't, then it's time to dig deeper down to the layers beneath. So it's, where is that coming from? Why am I believing that? And you go back into, and the workbook that I have that goes along with the book helps you put your particular situations into the work. I have a lot of complete the sentence exercises, which help you see you're following along with the work, but it's helping you put your situation into the picture and having hopefully some aha moments of, oh, like what you went through when you went, aha, my mother hit me across the face when I was 12. Oh my God, I'm sure that's all you needed to realize, because that was pretty intense. And here you are. But sometimes it's, parents say to me all the time, I don't remember my childhood. I have so few memories. And I say, it really doesn't matter. Most people have very few memories. I have very few memories. And we don't know why. Some people have amazingly clear memories of their childhoods and some don't. But I also tell parents, if you can't remember, make it up. Because the first thing you go to when you make it up is probably pretty close to the truth of what happened. But anyway, what we need to get to is how we, as young, vulnerable children, so impressionable, hear particular words from our parents or other important adults in our lives, or see that look on their face like you did when you were sure your mother hated you, and you build that awareness of your perception of that situation. This is not about blaming our parents. It's about realizing that children have their own very, very immature perceptions of what's going on and what's being said. So then we look at what I call the gap, which is that space between me, the parent, and my child, and what I am intending to teach my child in that moment, and what my child actually hears, what my child takes in. I'm no good. I'm unacceptable. Nobody loves me. I'm alone. Those become beliefs that get stuck in our subconscious mind. Those beliefs are the buttons that get pushed by our children.
Yeah, I had a lot of trauma work to do after that because I didn't realize how much trauma I had. But when I really ferreted out, what I discovered was that what he said to me, my thought was, you should be ashamed of yourself. And then I hit him. And then when I did the work, I realized, oh, I think that's exactly what my mom wanted me to feel, was ashamed of myself for what I had done. And I did feel ashamed of myself. And it becomes part of, you should feel ashamed of yourself when I become a parent, because that's like just a belief that I learned, that children should be ashamed of themselves to speak like that to a parent, which of course is ridiculous. Why in the world would I want my child to go through life feeling ashamed of himself like I did? So I had to learn all about, oh gosh, I have this shame that just sort of runs through me, because that was sort of my parents' best way of teaching, was through shame. And I just had that very deep and didn't know about it until I got kids. And it's like, oh my gosh, it just keeps coming back and back about, how they should be ashamed of themselves for this or for that or for this or for that. I'm like, oh gosh, there might be some other parenting methodologies that don't have shame at the core. I didn't know that.
I would say it's probably most of us who are brought up with that shame, because almost all of us have been brought up with the reward and punishment system of parenting. And that's what punishment does. It shames the child, because we think that's the way the child is going to decide to behave better, which is ridiculous. Depending on the temperament of the child, then that kind of, you should be ashamed of yourself, provokes that child to behave worse and worse and worse, or they go in with horrible self-hatred. And it's just amazing how we think punishment is going to teach, or telling a child you should be ashamed of yourself is going to make you decide, oh yes, I am. Okay, I will never do that again.
Well, yes, I probably will do it again, but I'll try not to get caught.
But you won't get caught. And the reason you won't do it again is out of fear. And so we all are raised with parents we fear. That's not what it should be. If you want to raise kids you love to live with, you can't use fear.
I agree with that 100%. Let's sort of switch to, most of my listeners are parents, and they're always struggling with what to do in the heat of the moment when their logic disappears and their prefrontal cortex goes offline and they can't think, right? So what do you coach parents to actually do in real time when they feel themselves getting pulled into a reaction they don't want, or one they've experienced in childhood, and that's what's at the tip of their fingertips and their tongue?
I have yet to meet a parent who has been able to adjust their behavior in the heat of the moment. In the heat of the moment, we're offline. Our emotions are flooding our brains. We can't think. We can't be reasonable. So I always tell parents, you can't do anything in the heat of the moment, but do what you're doing. The work is after. And every time you're able to do the work after the incident, you are helping make the next incident better. We don't want to do that. It's over. I don't want to think about it again. It was horrible. I hated myself. I hated my child. I'm not going to work on that. I'm not going to do that.
What is the work?
Well, the work is what I just kind of laid out. It's looking at the situation.
Oh, asking.
I tell parents to get a piece of paper and write down these questions. What is it that happened? What was my reaction? Because that's easy. How did I feel? If I reacted that way, how was I feeling? And if I felt that way, what was I thinking?
Okay.
And getting back to those thoughts and then learning how to reframe those thoughts.
And then a reframe on you should be ashamed of yourself would sound like what?
Well, it could be, God, a gazillion things. What was it either you did or your son did in that situation that made you think that?
I think he swore at me. I think he said, fuck you.
So a reframe of that would be, he must be incredibly angry with me to swear at me like that. Now, you can't do that in the heat of the moment.
No.
Right? But it's very, very important to do it. And if you can write that down and you have changed, you should be ashamed of yourself to, oh my God, he must be so angry with me. Then you're going to look at, I wonder why. What's making him so angry with me? And then you've got communication. But that's going to him. You're leaving your own head and what's going on with you and reaching across that gap and seeing the situation from your child's perspective.
Yeah, that's so hard. It was hard for me. It's hard for parents, right? To stand in the shoes of children because, well, especially American culture, we do not give a lot of respect to the thoughts and feelings and desires of children. We don't want to stand in those shoes.
Right. Exactly. We were there. We hated it. Right. But we don't remember it. And, we don't remember what it felt like to be an angry 12-year-old, or a jealous 3-year-old. We don't remember that.
Right.
And it's, so it is. It's, as you were talking a few minutes ago, I was thinking, of course, that those beliefs get tapped, and it's very often the therapy that we do or the awareness of the therapy we need to do when we have children. It's our children who are making us see. And when they push our buttons, typically we want to stop them. We want to teach them a lesson. Don't you ever do that to me again. Mm-hmm. The real lesson is being able to turn the camera on ourselves and seeing what it is that we did to provoke the situation. And that is what is so, so hard. It's just.
Yeah. It takes a pretty insightful person to take the time to look at all of that. Our lives are so busy.
Yep.
And we're moving from thing to thing, and we're taking the kids here and taking the kids there and going to work and doing this and that. And
why can't they just for once do what I ask?
Right. Just put your shoes on and get in the car.
Yeah,
I got to get you to school.
I have spent all day working on this. Yeah.
Right. And the child's like, I don't want to go to school. I'm like, I don't care what you want. Get in the car.
Right. Exactly. We're going to be late. Hurry up.
Yeah.
Mornings, bedtimes. There are those dinner times, those times of the day that are so much harder, are typically very, very hard.
Well, we all have such narrow bandwidths, by the time we get tired at the end of the day. The kids are tired. They've been to school all day. There have been demands all day long. And if they come from difficult beginnings, like most of the kids whose parents are listening right now, they are really worn out. Right. And they are spent, and they don't have another nerve for you to stand on, parents. And a lot of times we're just thinking about the nerves we have. We don't want stood on.
And I think it is just as important as doing what you need to do to take care of your children. It is just as important to do what you need to do to take care of yourself. And that's not even on a parent's to-do list, doing something for themselves. I know you know this. See, there's nothing more important than taking care of yourself. And if you're spent, if you're exhausted, as we all know, you're not anywhere close to your best. And if we really want to be there for our kids and be able to be present in those moments that are so hard, then we've got to be pretty darn regulated, Not far from perfect. We don't want anybody to be perfect, but we've got to be able to take those curse words, take those punches, and not react as if we're the child. Because our children need to know that we can take absolutely anything from them and still be there. Doesn't mean we're not going to be angry. It's very difficult not to be angry. I mean, wonderfully calm, mostly indigenous cultures have just this amazing calm with everybody. I don't think we can expect that of ourselves. So I always say to parents, you have as much right to your anger as your kids have to theirs. It's what you do with it. If you blame it on your child, you are being irresponsible and you are teaching your child how not to take responsibility for yourself. If you own it, you can hit the roof. I'm so angry right now. Fine. Own it. I don't like it when this happens. Rather than you can't do that. Every time you start with a you have completely broken connection.
Well, right. And you can't control the you're saying. Don't you ever do that again. Like you can actually do anything with that, right? You have no control over whether they do that.
And that's another really hard one for parents to learn, that they don't have control over their children. Because I think for most parents, they think that's their job, is to control your children.
Well, on some level, we do have to act as guardrails, or containers.
Oh, absolutely.
The best we can. But even then, they can still get outside of them, and we don't have control once they do. So it is what it is. It's an illusion to think we can actually fully be a container, especially when they move into the age of agency, when they're in their teens.
Right. So much work needs to be done before the teen years hit, because they can do anything they want.
I know. And they do.
Yeah. They do. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, I know that parents are the most important people in the room with their own children early on, especially. And if they really see themselves that way and do their own personal work of healing, because I do believe that no matter what your childhood was like, for the most part, we all have healing to do. Because no one's perfect. No one's parents were perfect. It's important for us to look at that so that we don't walk around going, oh, everything was fine in childhood. My parents were, and like,
or
I kind of missed the boat
else that. Can do that but me. It's another one. Nobody has kids like I have.
Well, and I certainly thought that, and until I met a bunch of adopted parents, and I'm like, oh, all of us adopted parents have kids like us.
Right.
This is the way. I guess not all, but many. Let's just say many.
Now, I've got a question for you. Being an adoptive parent, how is that different in terms of your feelings of responsibility for your child than if you're a birth parent? Are you also a birth parent?
No, I'm not. I only have experience with birth parents. And I have 2 stepchildren, and my husband's, of course, they're biological to him. And my 2 adopted kids. But I don't experience a difference. I do think there's a difference when you get blocked, because I don't experience most biological parents to get the level of blocked that you can get when you have adopted kids. And what I mean by blocked, if you're not familiar with that term, is where you can't feel your love feelings, because the intensity of behavior, the duration of behavior, it's all, and the frequency is so escalated with our kids that, you're just bombarded. You get PTSD pretty seriously. And so once you get that, then it's hard to feel. Whereas I think most biological parents have that bond, that very perfect, special bond you can't get any other way, really, at birth, that acts a little bit like a prevention to blocked care that you don't get in adoption. I often tell people, I was operating out of love from my prefrontal cortex. I loved my kids all the time, but it was not a feeling, it was a fact. It was a behavior. There were behaviors that go with love, but there was so much behavior at me all the time that I couldn't feel much of anything.
And that's
except
how you
survival
protect yourself.
Yeah. So now, though, my kids are 29 and 31, and I couldn't love from my heart those kids, adults, more, right? I love them deeply in a very, feels like biological way, like they are not. I'm not blocked from them at all. And they have grown and healed themselves in a lot of ways, and they've definitely healed in their relationship with me. And so they are deeply loving now and forthcoming with their love. And that changes it, right? Once you can get some love back, it's reciprocal. There is an attachment that grows. And I'm in the minority in a lot of ways of speaking this out loud. A lot of people just are like, no, I love my kids the same. And I'm like, yeah, okay, good for you. But I know so many parents feel shame that they don't have that. And I'm like, well, it's almost impossible to have that if you don't have that intersubjective connection you get at birth. That's the thing. It does grow if you have reciprocity. And so over time, I've gotten that. And it's like, oh, yeah, here it is.
It's so much harder
like,
to have to wait for it and trust that it's going to happen, too. Then when you birth a child, you get that love.
You just know.
You get that look in your eyes and all of that. You get that mirroring, which you don't get when you adopt.
Not usually. I mean, even in babies, when you get them right out of the hospital, there's a little bit of disconnect, right? You're just not the right parent. And so there is, even if you aren't aware of it, like sometimes adoptive parents who get babies aren't really aware, but there's still a difference. So it's a different thing. But, you can profoundly love somebody out of your executive function. Just ask me. I went through hell with my kids, and I loved them the whole time, and stayed with them when everybody was saying, get out, give them up now. Like, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. I signed, I'm doing it. I'm so grateful that I learned what I did so that I can share what I know with parents who are going through it right now, because they just need to hang on. If you hang on, it will come. If you keep your relationship with them, there's hope for sure. There's never not hope. I honestly, even it can look so hopeless in the teen years. It can just look so horrifying, actually. And it is in a lot of ways.
It can,
and bad things can really happen.
For sure.
Too. That's right. Yeah. Hey, I want to make sure that you have a chance to talk more about the things that you want to share, where in the show notes, there will be information about how to get a hold of you. And what would you like to share with my listeners right now about yourself?
Well, what I do mostly these days is private coaching. Anybody can sign up for that. You can email me, go on their website that is there now, connectiveparenting.com. The books are available. The workbook is available. The podcast is available. I guess that's what I would recommend.
Would you say the name of your podcast?
Tell Me About Your Kids.
Yeah, I love that. So
and I also
have really special.
I also have an audio seminar, a class of When Your Kids Push Your Buttons.
Oh, great.
So a number of years ago, I used to teach my class in person. Then I did not an online, but on the phone, talking to various parents from different countries. And all of that 16 hours is available in an audio seminar. And with that comes the workbook, the download for the workbook, and you follow along. And it's like you are a virtual member of the group. And groups, as you attested to a few minutes ago, are so, so important, because every parent I have ever talked to comes from that, I'm so alone. I'm the only one, and all of that kind of thinking. And it's the group that helps you really see that you are not alone.
Yeah.
And even if it's a virtual group, you're hearing these different parents going through their situations. Everybody comes up with some kind of a belief of some form of, I'm not good enough. Mm-hmm. I can't do it right. And when you hear other people talk about their situations and come up with what their beliefs that are working on them, it's like, oh yeah, wow.
Yeah, it's really powerful.
That sounds familiar. It's very powerful. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for all that you do for parents.
And you as well.
Thank you.
You as well. Yeah.
So everyone, thank you for coming today to listen to Bonnie Harris. You know that we say the truth around here, even when it's a little hard to hear. Remember, your love matters when more than love is required. I'll see you in the next episode.